Our theme this month is gratitude. And my topic today is to recalibrate, celebrate. To recalibrate, celebrate. Gratitude is the great attitude adjuster. And I love it because it doesn't cost any money. It's always available to us. At any moment, in any time, we can get into a state of gratitude. I say all the time that our experience of life is not the circumstances and the conditions that we're going through. Those are just facts. A fact is a fact till it's not. Your experience is how you name it. The experience is your interpretation of it. See, facts are just data. Facts have no meaning until we infuse them with meaning. Nothing is information by a fact until we infuse it with meaning. So we get a choice at any moment in time to decide the meaning that we're going to give things. That's how the recalibration comes into place. It's when we choose a more transcendent view, when we choose to no longer be resonating with the stuff of this world, as it says in Scripture, do not be conformed to this age. To conform, to go along with it. Don't just conform with the stuff that's going on in the world. Be ye transformed. Move beyond the forms by the renewing of your mind. So I did something yesterday that I want to encourage everybody to do from time to time. I just unplugged. Period. I just unplugged. Turn the cell phone off, turn the television off, take the computer off. I went to the beach, and I stayed there for hours, just for me and my little old self. Barely spoke to anybody, did a little bit of reading, but just allowed myself to get back into my own rhythm. Listen to what I'm saying. We get so pulled by the stuff of this world. Our nervous systems aren't even designed to absorb the amount of energy that comes at us. And remember, the energy isn't just what you personally are looking at or you personally are thinking about. It's in the airways. We are being bombarded at all times by all of these frequencies. And it is important that you take some responsibility over your own energetic field. Even things like bathing with salts helps to clear and clear that out so that we don't have so much Velcro, we don't have so much sticky stuff. You notice when you're getting into a lack of gratitude, the world is too much with you. When you're getting into a lack of gratitude, you are so consumed with a negative narration about what is or what has been, and you're busy projecting that into the future. There's some beautiful lines in today's activations. And I can always tell when they're just real spiritual downloads because there's a beauty to them and a resonance with them. And this one struck me just a few moments ago, that recalling bounty and resilience curbs anxieties. And I never really thought about it like that before, how bounty and resilience were bookends. That bounty are those places where we've experienced a lot, And the resilience are those places where we've overcome when there wasn't a lot. And that recalling both of those, either when there's been a lot or when I have been victorious, when it seemed like there wasn't enough, that either one of those curbs. To curb something is to make it subside a little bit, to round it out a little bit so it doesn't have such hard edges, so it doesn't have such a grasp on you. To curb it is to decrease it, bring it down a few notches so that it curbs anxieties. And anxieties are those fears that we have about the future. So if I can recall bounty I have had, ways I've been able to overcome when it didn't seem like there was enough, then that's going to curb fears that I have about there not being enough in the future. Let that sink in for a moment. We have to deliberately recalibrate. We are energetic beings. See, to recalibrate isn't the same thing as acquiring. Recalibrating isn't about getting more. Recalibration is about shifting our energetic vibration so that we are in alignment. Think of it more like a sound wave. Like there's a tuning pitch, and you're adjusting your pitch, your sound, until you're resonating at the right pitch, like tuning a guitar or something like that, like tuning a string. That we get out of alignment and we start resonating with lower frequencies. We start resonating with lower vibrations. We start resonating with the consciousness of lack and limitation. Possibility and limitation cannot occupy the same spot. They can't occupy the same spot. It's just like if you were to walk into a room and the room was dark. There's no amount of cursing the darkness. There's no amount of analyzing why is it dark and how did it get dark and how long is it gonna be dark and being pissed at the dark. It doesn't get you anywhere. The only thing you can do is start introducing light. The darkness is just a void. That's all that it is. A darkness is just the lower frequency of light. It's not something else. It doesn't it's something else that as the light comes in, the darkness dissipates. I love that word. There's no fight. There's no push and pull or trying to keep it out. It just dissipates. Breathe that in for a moment. It's such the metaphor that as you recalibrate, as you go from 5 watts to 50 watts to 500 watts to 5,000 watts, it just gets brighter and brighter and brighter. You don't have to worry about those places where it felt like you were wailing around in some kind of darkness or you couldn't see. Let in the light. Just let in the light. Have the willingness to recalibrate. Too often we identify with our stuff. And we feel like if I recalibrate, I'm going to negate my experience. If I recalibrate, I'm going to go into denial. There's going to be some Pollyannish thing, or I don't even have a right to recalibrate because this is it. This is my bed. I need to lie in it. Blah, 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 blah. Get over it. Make the choice. Make the choice wherever it is that you are to stand in the I am that I am. The I am that I am of your being doesn't care about all the so-called facts. The I am that I am of your life doesn't care about the prognosis, the diagnosis, the analysis, the election. The I am that I am of your being says, I am. And I will be the all that I can be wherever it is that I am at all times. Breathe that in. All it takes is your permission. It just takes your conscious recognition. It takes your affirmation that I am more than this. I'm more than this. The sculptor is greater than anything the sculptor sculpts. The painter is bigger than the painting. It doesn't matter what a big mess you've made or that we've made. You're not your thoughts, you're the thinker. Think another thought. Just like you can't remove darkness from the room, you can't scoop it up and take it out. Well, you can't do that with your thoughts either. You can't unthink a thought. You can't unring the bell. It isn't that we're trying to get rid of thoughts. It isn't even that we're trying to stop thinking about things to recalibrate. We're thinking about something else. We're introducing something else. We're introducing a new narrative. We're introducing a new way of seeing things. We are allowing our mind, our energetic field, our emotions, our words to dislodge, to take the sticky stuff off, the Velcro off, of all of that stuff that's attached to us that really doesn't belong. When we recalibrate, we're cutting the strings so that we're not a marionette anymore, letting the world jerk us around. This is the election. This is the economy. This is COVID. Like this. No, cut it. Cut it. Stand in the truth and the power of who you are. Free, unencumbered, no shackles, no restraints, free. Breathe that in. But you have to recalibrate. You have to recalibrate. You have to tell yourself a new narrative. You have to tell yourself a new story. There are a lot of ways we have to recalibrate right now. We're in the middle of this global pandemic. And in the United States, needless to say, that our approach has been subpar. Is that the most delicate way to put it? We all have a responsibility here. Yes, the government has, the national federal government has failed enormously to create any kind of a plan in order to curb, remember that curb thing I just talked about? The spread. It's on us. It's on us. Right now, it's on all of us to do what we can. And now that we're going into the winter, we're in the middle of the fall here, it's starting to get colder. You know, our COVID experience thus far has been in the spring and the summer, where it's been warmer. We've been able to go outside. We've been able to hang out. Now that it's getting colder, and particularly in these areas where the weather is really harsh, there are going to be some tough decisions here. And one of the toughest ones coming up right now is around Thanksgiving. And Christmas is right around the corner from that. And I'm going to ask you, rethink it. Rethink it. Of course, we all want to get together. That Thanksgiving time is the biggest travel time typically in the United States. this virus is so out of control now that I'm going to ask you really, really rethink carrying this across state lines. Really, really rethink being in your family gatherings where there are a lot of you there at one particular moment in time. We don't know who's symptomatic. I mean, we don't know who has the disease because you can carry it and not be symptomatic. We just don't know. Now, I know that may cause a lot of grief, especially since people have been lonely and shut in, and especially those who have had pre-existing conditions or who might be older and suffering from different kinds of things. Of course, we want to get together with family. But you know what? Just rethink it. It may not be this way next year, but at least for this year, can you recalibrate? Can you give yourself a new narrative? Can you find some other kind of way of looking at this? Another kind of way where maybe love is not getting together? Maybe that's the best way to love you? Think about that for a moment. Could that possibly be? When we recalibrate, it requires for us to acknowledge and accord with the way that things are. Not necessarily so we can stay there, but so that we don't lose our sense of agency, that we don't forget our dunamis, our pure capacity to take action, being jerked around by the stuff of the world. That when the Taoists talk about this, accord with the way things are. Just call it whatever it is so you can do something about it. You can't make a change about something that you deny that you have. We can't move from someplace other than you are. You can't move towards sobriety if you're in denial that you have addiction. At some point, you just got to take a breath and say, okay, this is what it is. This is what it is. Stop fighting it. Stop being mad at it. Just, this is the way that it is. Everything changes. Just breathe that in. This too shall pass. It's good news, maybe bad news, but everything changes. So this holiday season may not be like the other ones, but that's okay. Part of our frustrations is trying to recapture something that already was but is not anymore. When people tell me that they want a baby, I sometimes wonder, what are you really saying? Are you saying that you want to commit to reprioritizing your priorities so that parenting takes precedent over your personal aspirations for at least the next couple of decades? Is that what you're just telling me right now? Or are you saying you want a baby? Because newsflash, that baby ain't going to be a baby all that long. It's not. Not a bad thing, not a good thing. You just accord with the way things are. Kid's going to be 5, kid's going to be 15, 25, and each of those stages is a different relationship that you have to recalibrate for. In order to stay in gratitude for that relationship that you're in, you have to change with it. You have to recalibrate with it. Because you can't have the same relationship at 5, with them at 5, as they did at 15, or 25, or 30. It's going to shift. So do you bemoan what it isn't? Or can you get in alignment with what it is? These holidays are coming up. A lot of times there's a lot of grief. Loved ones are no longer with us. Perhaps they've crossed over the veil. They've transitioned over to the other side. Maybe they've just grown up, left the house, or whatever, the empty nest syndrome. And to the outer eye, if you're a parent and you're experiencing that empty nest, for a while it can look barren. For a while it can look like, wow, all the life is like gone out of this place. But you know what? You hang in there and you keep recalibrating. And you know what? That little baby thing you had at one time, there's a good chance that sense of family that you had, it's going to expand. It's going to grow. As the kids take on partners, as the kids procreate and they become parents or get kids from wherever they're getting their kids from blended families or whatnot, all of a sudden, whoa, there's a whole lot more of us here. Recalibrate, celebrate this configuration that may not be the same as the other configuration. Take a breath. This is what we need to do in this nation. If we're going to have gratitude and celebrate who we are right here in this here United States of America, and I know some of you are listening from other countries, but I hope you appreciate this little family talk I'm having here. We have to recalibrate. If we're going to celebrate, we have to recalibrate. We have to accord with the way that things are. We can't go back. Just like you can't go back in a family. You can't go back. When you had this baby, you might not have been anticipating all this other stuff. You may not have been anticipating that, whatever, they were going to be gay. You may not have anticipated that they were going to hook up with somebody from another race. You may not have anticipated that they were going to be atheists and you are a staunch Jew. I mean, you don't you don't know what's going to happen with this expansion as it goes along. And if you really want to have a family, there has to be room enough for that expansion. These quote-unquote founding fathers, they didn't imagine me. They weren't thinking about me when they wrote the Constitution. But hello, I'm here. Hello, we're all here. Just as a family has to grow and adjust, a nation has to grow and adjust. We can't have the nation that we had a couple of 100 years ago any more than you can have the family that you just had a few decades ago. It's different. And that's okay. If we can get into some gratitude about what is. If we can celebrate what is. We can't go back. Take another breath. We're at a critical crossroads here as a nation. Nobody ever wins a fight. As Howard Thurman says, nobody ever wins a fight. You can end a relationship, but a divorce does not end the fight. You can change who's in the White House, but an election doesn't end a fight. As with any relationship, if you want the relationship, or more accurately, maybe I should say, if you want to be in a relationship, because I've just said you can't always keep that relationship exactly as it is. If you want to be in a relationship, you've got to stop fighting with the people in it. If you want to be in a relationship with folks, I don't care whether it's a nation, and we're talking about a democracy as our family construct, or whether you're talking about what's happening in your individual home. Take another breath. This keep America, make America great again is trying to go back. It's trying to go back. And the greatness that is its foundation. Just keep breathing. The greatness that is that foundation is gone. It does not exist anymore. The founding fathers were WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. They were the dominant, and they built the whole nation around that. WASPs have not been the majority of the nation for the past 25 years. Just breathe that in for a second. That majority position ended last century, towards the end of last century, in the middle 90s. We're almost a quarter into a new century. Just like with the family, it's a new cast of characters now. You might have grandma and grandpa that came from, quote unquote, the old country or whatever, with their ways and their foods and their language or whatever it is that they were doing. But 2 or 3 generations down, you can't squeeze the folks who were here now into the ways of the grandparents or great-grandparents who first immigrated here. It is evolved, it has shifted. Does it mean they're not important? No. Does it mean that we have to abandon the customs and the language and the religion? No, it doesn't mean that. But it also means that we can't pay so much homage to it that we ignore the truth, the capacity, the greatness, and the power of the configuration that we have here now. It's a both and. Thank you for these beautiful roots and foundation, and here are the new fruits. Just breathe that in for a moment. We have to recalibrate, because the foundation that this nation was built on is no different than that little house you initially got or apartment when you first had like a baby. The first one. And then as time went on, you had to adjust, you had to grow, you had to expand. And so it is with us as a nation. We have to recalibrate. I've been a diversity trainer for years. And the reality of all of this hits at deeper and deeper levels. And I can understand the challenge that this may be. Because if you're not accustomed to being in the minority, that can be something. But greatness isn't quantifiable in numbers. Greatness isn't about amounts. Greatness isn't about are there enough of us that we can push things over and have our way. If this last election has shown us nothing, it needs to show us that a change has happened, that a change is happening. And if you would look at the last 6, 7 elections that we've had, presidential elections, every last one of them, the popular vote has gone in the same direction. This is not about partisanship. This is about expanded capacity of who we are as a nation. I remember the last time that the magnitude of this really hit me. I was at a graduation for one of my cousins, my first cousin's son, her elder son. And he was getting his master's at San Jose State. That was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So we're out in the stadium, and I think San Jose State, California State University, was graduating, I think about 10,000 people or something that year. And they've got thousands of graduates that are down on the floor, like the football field. And there's so many of them, they're not calling them all up by name. They had done that in private, more departmental graduations. But whole groups would stand up, like whatever, engineering or, architecture or whatnot, and like they'd all applaud. And I remember looking all around me and hearing all of the languages and whatnot. But they didn't have all 10,000 in the program book. And you could look and you could read. And I remember thinking, well, I won't tell you what I really thought, but let's just say it was like, wow. I couldn't pronounce the names. Page after page after page after page. Like good old, like I got a good old waspy name, Deborah Lynn Johnson. I mean, Deborah's Hebrew, but you don't get any more waspy than Johnson. Those were very few and far between. They were Asian. They were Middle Eastern. It was like every possible configuration you could have thought of. Name after name after name. The president of the university is an immigrant. And they were saying how some large number of presidents of Cal State campuses were immigrants. And it didn't evoke any fear or anything in me. It was more like, you're going to have to learn how to pronounce some names. It was, it was like a wake-up call. It was like, whoa, this is the state of California. And probably a large percentage of these graduates and whatnot are going to stay here in California. Girl, you got to get with it. I've been telling everybody, you need to learn some Chinese. Because by the end of this century, it's going to be a whole nother day in terms of English being like the major religion around the world. But we don't have to be in fear. We don't have to be in fear. If I really get into what I think was the intent, not necessarily the structures that these quote-unquote founding fathers put in, but if you get into what theoretically was an underlying intent, then we're right on target. Here we are. And this is what it looks like. And I promise you that if we're willing to let go of all that we thought it used to be, like even here now, I admit it's emotionally hard seeing a lot of empty pews, but it's COVID, and I get it. But what I know is that this place holds almost, 600 people? But what I know is that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of you listening now. So I can bemoan, are you here in this room with me? Or I can celebrate that we're at such a place where there is technology that allows us to connect. Isn't that extraordinary? Isn't that an extraordinary new narrative? That our founding fathers could have never imagined this. And I know I'm staying a long time, but I'm going to say one more thing about this. When they developed the Electoral College, they couldn't have imagined this. It would have been impossible to do a national vote. There was no mechanism. The best they could do was at state level. But the presidency is the only national. It's the only. And they just lack the capacity. So, of course, it made sense to send representatives from the states. That made sense. This whole Electoral College thing. It don't make no sense no more. That's acting like we still a family with just a little baby. And why we have less than 1,000 people calling an election with 150 million people voting. It's time to recalibrate. I'm just saying. Time to recalibrate a few things. And if we stick together, if we're willing to get into the healing, if we're willing to give up the fight, if we're willing to still honor, I don't have to like you to love you. I don't have to like you to be one with you. But if I appreciate you, then we can find some common ground. Let us pray. I'm going to have my songstress come up. I was really feeling that Mother, Father, God that y'all were doing. You got to give me some of that.
You got it.
Yeah. Just the vocals. Let's just the vocals first. Just do what you did before. I love that build up and how you did it. Just we're going to do it real low underneath me. We turn within in this moment.
Father God, there's
a healing going on. It's in our soul.
There's a healing going on.
Oh, Mother, Father, God. Spirit Almighty, we call upon the ancestors. We call upon the most indigenous wisdom of our soul. The Africans say that memory is in the bones. It's in the marrow of our bones. You know, we say we know it in my bones. I know in my bones
There's a healing going on.
that this planet was made for all of us. I know in my bones that each and every one of us is precious in the eyes of God. I know it in my bones. I know in my bones there's enough, that there's enough caring, there's enough compassion, there's enough resources, there's enough energy, there's enough food, there's enough. And in this moment right now, we recalibrate our intent. We recalibrate our intent. Wherever you are, I invite you to just sing along now. There's a healing going on. There's a healing in our body temple. There's a healing in our body politic. There's a healing in the global pandemic, COVID-19. There's a healing that's going on in the economy. Oh, yes. Come on, band. Give me a little something. Something. There's a healing going on.
There's a healing going on.
Do you feel it? Do you feel it? Can you recalibrate? We cut the strings, take the shackles off our feet so we can dance and dance the dance of life. We're here now for such a time as this. Life goes not backward, nor does it tarry with yesterday. We praise this moment. The possibilities in this moment. The possibilities of freedom. The expanded heart. The expanded mind and consciousness. The expanded beloved community. It's here. It's now. Oh. Will you let go? Creating us a clean heart, oh God. Renew a right spirit within us. We stop fighting.
You rock my soul.
Pain pushes until vision pulls, and we show up with a vision. Oh, we've got a vision. We've got a vision of a world that can work for everyone. We've got a vision of enoughness. We've got a vision of being able to get along.
There's a healing going on.
Yes.
There's
a healing. Thank you, my brother Jamie Lula, for writing this song. Yes. Oh, sing it.
Yes, you do. I'll say, oh, you rock my soul.
Sing it, everybody.
I'll say, Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. I'll say, Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on.
There's a healing going on.
Oh, Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. And I say, oh, you rock my soul. Oh, yes, you do. Yeah, I say, oh, you rock my soul.
Rocking in the bosom.
Say, Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on.
Leaning on the everlasting
I say, Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. Mother, Father, God, oh, there's a healing going on. Listen, I'll say, oh, you rock my soul. Yes, you do. I'll say, oh, you rock my soul. I'll say, oh, you rock my soul. Yes, you do, God. I say, oh, you rock my soul. And I say, oh, you rock my soul.
Yes, indeed. Breathe. Woo! Breathe that in. Thank you, Heather Houston. And thank you, Etienne France. Thank you, Ben. And thank you, all of you who have been with us. Take this consciousness, multiply it, spread it out into the world.